Welcome! In this explainer, we're going to explore something pretty cool, how looking back at the history of nursing is actually one of the best ways to build a better, smarter future for healthcare.
You know, have you ever stopped to wonder why we follow certain medical procedures, or how nursing even became the profession we know today? Well, the answers don't just pop out of thin air or come from tradition. They come from a powerful, systematic process of discovery, and that process is called nursing research.
All right, so let's dive right in. First things first, what exactly are we talking about when we say nursing research? Let's get a solid definition.
So it's way more than just collecting some data. It's a formal, really rigorous process, and it's got two main goals. First, it's about generating brand new knowledge to solve the problems we're facing in clinics today. And second, it's about checking and refining the knowledge we already have, just to make sure our practices are built on the most solid evidence possible.
Okay, so here's the crucial part. Every single research study needs a plan, right? A kind of blueprint that guides the whole thing. We call this the research approach, and they generally fall into two major categories.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because the difference in perspective is huge. On one hand, you have quantitative research. Think numbers, statistics, hard data that you can measure. It's fantastic for answering questions like, how many people were affected? Then, on the other hand, you've got qualitative research. This is all about the human side of the story, the context, the interpretation, the meaning. It digs into experiences to answer the big questions, why and how.
Now, within that qualitative path, researchers have a bunch of different methods they can use to tackle those why and how questions. You can see some of them here. But today, we're going to zero in on one that basically works like a time machine for healthcare. The one highlighted right there, historical research.
So let's get into it. Let's see how looking backward actually helps us understand exactly where we are today. Seriously, by digging into the past, we can find the roadmap that led us straight to modern nursing.
So in short, this is not just about reading old books for fun. It's a formal investigation. Researchers are systematically gathering evidence about what happened in the past, not just to get the facts, but to draw real conclusions that shine a light on why we do things the way we do right now.
And this is what makes this approach so unique. First off, its focus is totally on the past. Second, and this is a big one, the researcher can't change a thing. They're working with evidence as it is. Which means that third point, context and interpretation, becomes absolutely everything. It's like being a detective, piecing together not just what happened, but why it happened, given the social and political climate of the time.
So, if the researcher is a historical detective, what are their clues? What does this evidence actually look like? Well, the clues basically fall into two main buckets. You've got your primary sources, which are the raw materials of history, direct, first-hand evidence from the time period you're studying, and then you have secondary sources, which are the second-hand accounts that analyze and interpret all those raw materials.
Just think of primary sources as eyewitness testimony. We're talking about things like the personal diaries of pioneering Indian nurses, original hospital records, the official minutes from a nursing council meeting, or even old photographs. They are a direct, unfiltered window straight into the past.
Secondary sources then come in to provide that super valuable context and analysis. This could be a modern textbook that explains what the healthcare world was like in the 19th century, or maybe a published history that weaves together information from tons of primary sources to tell a much bigger story.
So with all these sources, our historical detectives can tackle all sorts of investigations. They might do a biographical study focusing on the life of one incredible nurse like Florence Nightingale, or they could look at a whole institution, maybe tracing the history of the Indian Nursing Council to see how it changed over the decades. They can even zoom out and investigate how huge social shifts, like changing economic conditions, shaped the entire profession.
Okay, so this all brings us to the big question, right? This sounds fascinating, sure, but why does digging through old archives actually matter for a busy modern-day nurse? What's the real-world payoff?
Oh, the payoff is immense. First, looking back gives us a vital context for the problems we face today. For example, understanding the history of nursing shortages can help us deal with today's staffing crises better. It also builds a much stronger sense of professional identity. It connects us to the incredible people who came before us. And this one is critical. It gives us ethical guidance. Studying past unethical research, like the infamous Tuskegee syphilis study, was a huge reason we have the strict ethical guidelines that protect patients today. It's a powerful lesson in why those rules matter so much.
But of course, it's not always easy. A historical detective might find that the clues, the historical documents, are lost forever, falling apart, or locked away in some private collection. The whole process can be incredibly time-consuming, and there's always the risk that the researcher's own biases might creep in and affect how they interpret the evidence.
But even with those challenges, historical research is so much more than just an academic exercise. It's a practical, powerful tool. It helps us understand how we got to where we are, which, let's be honest, is the most important first step in figuring out where we need to go next to improve the future of healthcare.
So as we wrap up, I want you to think about this. Every single day, we are creating the primary sources that future historians will study. So the question to leave you with is, what history are we making right now? What will future nurses learn from how we handle today's challenges that will help them understand their world?